Hello, folks. Welcome along once again to the Irish Rally Podcast, and once again in association with TreeRock.ie. TreeRock display signage branding. Check them out on Twitter, Facebook, and on Instagram. We're also live ourselves on Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube. We would go live on Instagram if we were able to, but maybe the sound people at StreamYard will make that happen in the not too distant future. Anyway, we're here to reflect on the 2022 Rally of the Lakes. Again, I suppose like every episode so far has had its talking points, plenty to get through over the next hour or so. If you want to get in touch, just drop us a comment underneath the streams there on Facebook and YouTube in particular. We can most of the time get an eye on those comments. Twitter, not so much unless I can somehow get my phone and have a little look mid-broadcast, which we're not really supposed to be doing. But anyway, don't be afraid to get in touch. We'll try to get to those comments. We have a stellar cast as always coming up very, very shortly. We'll be chatting to Callum Devine and Noel O'Sullivan. Just after that, then we'll be chatting to Josh Moffett. I'll be chatting to Tommy Coman. Historics, I suppose, as someone has said recently, the forgotten category. Certainly not forgotten by us here on the Irish Rally Podcast. Anyway, I look forward to chatting to Tommy about that. We'll also be chatting to Dennis Nagle, because I suppose one thing we've kind of set out from the get-go of this podcast is to give our class winners a mention, but it just occurred to me the other day that in terms of interviews, while we've interviewed modified winners, overall winners, historic winners, etc., we've never actually interviewed a class winner separate to that. So we're going to do that this evening as well. As you mentioned, all in association with TreeRock. Now, one man who wasn't out and about over the weekend was Mr. Anthony Nestor. How are you doing, sir?
Hello there.
No drive forthcoming, not at the 11th hour.
No drive forthcoming. So I spent the weekend in the garden.
Good man. And while you had the lawnmower out, you cut your own head as well.
I did, yeah.
You're looking a bit lighter.
Yeah. I get the Grecian 2000 out now, and I'll knock about 20 years off myself, and we'll give it another go. So, yes, we were observing with great interest. All right, now to be fair, so it seemed to be a great event. I suppose it's like loads of events when you see the smiles on people. Yes, take the top 4 guys out of it. Because it's so serious, and I'm wrong to say the top 4. Take the top 10 out of it. That's very serious level. But when it gets after the top 10, the smiles and the happiness of people that were just so overjoyed at the end of stages. Everybody just seemed happy. They got what they wanted. Good, clean, classic stages. Just seemed to go down a treat. It normally does, to be fair. It normally does in Killarney. This event would be our, I suppose, what we would call here in West Limerick, it would be our local international. It's 45 minutes back the road. And certainly when we were younger growing up, it was, the Lakes was the be-all and end-all. I don't think we even knew there was other internationals on. That was the only one that existed as far as we were concerned in our 20s. It was always a nice event, whether it's in the current stages around Belockbeam and that, or in the other years it goes down into Cod's Head and our Groom, which certainly would be a favourite of mine. I think for any co-driver, I think Cod's Head and our Groom are probably the most challenging, certainly I've ever come upon anyway, on a regular basis. You'll get certainly stages that will challenge you and challenge your ability. They'd certainly be too. But it seemed to not. Mind you, I was curious to see that our friend, our ever-present friend, the bogey time is raising its head again. Albeit by a few seconds. I was talking to somebody during the week there, and I think it's time that these virtual chicanes are going to have to be explored, because obviously, I suppose as society becomes a little more affluent, and we're gone from the 1920s in that we're regarded within Europe now as a wealthy country. So obviously our road network has improved exponentially over that period of time, and the cars have got so much faster. The cars are going through the stages now. It's so much quicker than they were some years ago. So obviously, as this progression happens in society, we're going to end up with problems with breaking this average 80 mile an hour or 130 kilometer an hour. 130 is that whatever 80 mile an hour in here is 80 or 85, and still breaking it. So I think the virtual chicane is probably due soon. It's going to come. I know certainly West Cork, I think it was on Ardfield there, they came within 10 or 12 seconds. And if you look at of the bogey time and you look at the rate of progression, give it 2 years and West Cork is going to have a bogey time issue down there. The circuit, obviously, that was well documented, had a bogey time issue. And now again, we have it again in Killarney, albeit only on one stage. And the trouble is, at the level that Callum and Alistair and Josh and Cahan and all these guys and Johnny Greer are at, that could ruin their whole championship, ruin their whole year, that one stage. So I suppose the time now is to plan for the future, that in a couple of years' time, if the cars keep progressing the way they are, if you think about it, it's not that many years ago that there was a big hoo-ha when Bertie Fisher, albeit now I know the stage in Miles Gap was slightly different, when he broke, I think, was it the 10-minute barrier?
Yeah.
There was great publicity surrounding that. And I think there were, the bogey time was it 8:05 or something this year, and it was beaten 2 minutes quicker. Now, again, I know it's not exactly the same stage, but yeah, the rate of progression is huge. And like everything, it's going to keep progressing. And of course, Killarney had a first again this weekend, certainly that we haven't seen for a while, which seemed to go pretty well, was the refueling. It was something that, is coming. I would safely say it'll be mandatory next year. If I was to hazard a guess, this is going to be a must for events going forward. Mind you, just without dwelling on it, I would advise people to competitors, and this is just a shout out to competitors, just to be, they say in life, to be forewarned is forearmed. When you put your fuel into a refueling area and you mark your car number on it, all I will say is remember that the octane rating of that fuel is written on the can that you've just put your car number on. And there is a regulation around octane. I'd advise people to start looking it up, because it could come to bite back at them sometime in the future. Because there will, as time goes on, there'll be eligibility scrutineers and all that kind of thing. So yeah, the guys that just want to watch that. Yeah, all in all, seemed good. People were happy. People were smiling. There was huge amounts of people out, and yeah, seemed to be positive all around. Unfortunately, like all events, there's winners and losers, and some guys won and some guys weren't so winning. So, such as life.
We'll bring in a few people that were in the winners' enclosure. Cousin Callum, we'll call him Cousin Callum. My big question, first of all, my big question is, how did you happen to be related to this lad? Mother of God. What?
How did you get him on?
I don't know. There must be someone related to him or something.
Did you tell him to his live now? So whatever he says, that's it. Like there's no.
Tell me, Anthony, you were coming on, but sure, here we go. We caught us.
I tell you now, there's no erase button here, so we can't erase out whatever you say. So,
as someone said on another podcast recently, you can't put the shite back in the cow. So
and we don't do diplomacy at all here. Like, we just don't entertain it.
Yeah. Well, listen, we'll bring in another man in the winners' enclosure, and I know this meant an awful lot. Mr. Noel O'Sullivan, how are you doing, sir?
Hi guys, I might click the mute button, so
hey,
I'm not going to bore you with how we're supposedly related. I think that was a tag a mutual colleague of ours down in Ballincollig put on us. But
I was on the last time I was on here, I was a loser, so I said the next time I come on I have to be a winner.
Sure, no, why not?
Hey,
I think I done 2 weekends in the bounce losing. And now I've done 2 weekends in the bounce winning, so it's a bit different this time.
Yeah, sure, why not? I think, to be fair, your emotion at the end of the last stage would have told everybody what it meant. I thought it was nice. And of course, I'm not considering the other fellow jumping up into his father's arms like a 4-year-old. That was quite funny. He was a happy bunny, actually.
Yeah. I was class, lads.
Yeah,
he was smiling all weekend. He was smiling all weekend.
His father was rallying. How it was hardly me. I said, of course did you jumping up. Your father was happier than you were.
I know.
I think Callum actually is after doing the rally to the lakes more times than I have,
3 times I've done it, sir.
So what age, 44 or 5? You look well for it, actually.
I know it's a mirror. I think I'm after age again. I'm after the weekend.
Well, Anthony's still getting drives at 80, so that, there's hope for us all, isn't there? Yeah. Hey, come here, Noel.
Anthony's age, I'll be doing an easier sport.
Over the last,
a sort where the time and the clock isn't watching me.
It's sad. I need an adrenaline rush at the wrong side of 50.
The last 2 weeks, Noel, just sum them up, right? Because it's been pretty crazy. As I suppose fortnights ago, it's been pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, look, the 2 weeks have been great. Two great drivers, obviously, at the top of their game, and no, it was just a dream come true. Look, to win the first round of the British and to win my home rally, I could never have thought it at the start of the year. But look, I'll forever owe Callum for getting me my first Rally the Lakes win, and hopefully not my last.
Callum, in fairness, it was probably the worst kept secret in the country last week about Mr. O'Sullivan sitting in beside you. Now, we didn't leak it. We may or may not have known last Tuesday, but we did not leak it. It wasn't confirmed, definitely, of course. But just how last minute was this? And by God, it clicked fairly seamlessly anyway, didn't it?
Yeah, unfortunately, last real Sunday, really, Saturday and Sunday. Unfortunately, Shane, there was just some there's a family member took on well, and I just thought it'd be best not to go, and fair play to him too, because it's obviously a big thing for him to decide not to go, because he didn't want to ruin the rally for which obviously is not a good thing, so we didn't have much time to get a navigator gathered up, and also the same caliber as Noel there. Noel's top class navigator, and the experience there, to step into. Obviously, writing notes is another part of it, and then the experience saying that something these R5s is, I just know they're the pace is very sharp up there to be calling notes, and we were just lucky enough to get Noel on, and it worked out really well.
What's the big differences between Mr. Price and Mr. Devine, Noel? What did you have to adjust in such a short space of time? And obviously it worked.
I didn't adjust anything really. I don't know, are they listening to me or have the DVD watched a lot of times? But no, the boys are very similar. Look, they're on the same pace really. There's no difference between the two boys. We get on great. I get on great with Ashton and Callum, and it's just like you're racing with friends really. It's just a bit of fun, and you do your stage time and you chill out and relax again on the road section. I suppose it's a little bit more tense for people at home and family, and Callum's family and the boys in service. But when we're in the car, we're relaxed, and we just go out and do our job, make sure we do it well and the best we can.
I think we spoke a couple of weeks ago, actually. I think it was with Johnny Kelly and his son, actually. And we always maintained that, or I certainly would always maintain that the relationship outside the car, as in outside the stage, and how you get on and go to the coffee shop and have the fun. If you can get some sort of a mutual, a common denominator between you, it's so much easier to get on rather than have someone in the car that either smells.
I think we spoke about in the middle of the day about Derry beating Tyrone football. People wouldn't believe that, but that came up on the road section as well.
Yeah. But it's only the little things and they make such a difference if you can click with a person or enjoy their company. It makes it so much more enjoyable, and of course, results follow.
We probably still said what you say, or what was that? A lot during the weekend with the accents, with a bit of the difference from being. There was a lot of. What was that? What are you on about?
I thought that photo came with that thing in the computer, Google Translate, no? Did you not get that intercom? I think Steele will have one of them out now for those boys. You can speak in one language and to transfer it to the other way.
So. Seems a bit difficult thing sometimes as people down south with my language up here too. It's a bit hard to understand.
Yeah, sometimes it is. Sometimes
do you understand me there now, Anthony?
I can't hear you. What you say?
What I was going to say was, in fairness, Callum, you're only in the polo literally a wet day. You've transitioned to that fairly quickly, obviously, and the battle was ferocious over the 2 days. And Anthony has asked the question to several lads about the polo and what makes it so special and this, that, and the other, right? And I've told him not to fucking ask it again because he's not asking it, I think, 3 or 4 times. But you've obviously got the grips with it fairly quickly, and you got confident with it fairly quickly. That's a case of learning to sprint before you can crawl. So what do you put that down to?
I got a lot of confidence out of the car quite quickly. And I think it's I think it's when I'm driving it too, you get a lot of confidence out of it. It makes you a lot more calmer behind the wheel, know what it's capable of doing, and then when you're able to do that, then you're able to find different areas in your own driving where you need to improve to get faster, and yeah, I just think it like that, But to be honest, most of the R5s out of like the Hyundai and the Ford and the Polo now, they're all good at something. Like maybe they have a strong engine or some of the components is a wee bit better. It's just really how to get the most out of each car. Yeah, I just find the Polo, I've just managed to, it clicks a wee bit better with me, and I think obviously my driving style, it's just kind of, yeah, I just feel it's just going not too bad.
What's the natural progression from that car? In that, is it the new Skoda that's coming out will be the natural? And obviously, the development has stopped in the Polo. You're obviously not going to go back to the other one. So obviously, as the years go on, or maybe next year, the year after, you may find a situation where the other cars may be as competitive, and you may need to move again, or whatever the case may be. It'll be hard to find a car that would suit. It'll be interesting to see what this new Skoda R5 is like.
There's always a new car coming as well, isn't there?
Who's that?
Yeah.
There's always a new car. There's always going to be a new car every year.
I suppose,
every 3 years. It's always going to happen.
Yeah, and I think as well to each car, I think obviously last year when we started putting in results in the Ford, like everybody started to jump to Fords, and then when somebody puts a result in the Polo, it kind of always jumps to the car what's always winning at the time. And I think like the Citroen's obviously a very good car. It's proven in Europe and stuff. So I'm guessing if a couple of guys start putting the results in the Citroen's, who knows, the whole place could be moving to Citroen's in a couple of years' time. But as I say, the Skoda was probably, it's always been a very good car all round in Europe probably last decade, I suppose. But I think it just never really took off here in the Irish terrain, which is quite specialist, obviously, with the bumps and stuff. So I just think of whenever a car's tried and tested probably, and it shows that it's capable of winning, I think most guys will follow suit,
I suppose, they always want somebody to be the guinea pig, in that people are, as you said, like the Citroen, people are probably afraid because there's not enough of them out there to know what's the setup, what's kind of dampers, what's the compression, what's the rebound, and so on and so forth. And I suppose they're a bit nervous, whereas if they buy a Ford or a Polo, they can ring you or they can ring whoever, and they can make a few phone calls, and they'll have a base setting to go testing, or and then tweak it to suit themselves. But certainly, I see with the Citroen there, the Citroen certainly seems to have the strongest engine. It seems to be the quickest, as in a straight line, because you'll see that if the stages are anyway fast and flowing, that Citroen becomes, in Johnny Greer's hands, becomes very competitive. Certainly, some of the events there where the stages were quite quick, and he seems to come very, very close to you guys. So it'll be interesting how that progresses in time.
Yeah, he definitely has, Johnny. Like as I say, he's putting in great times there at the weekend. And once he just gets more mileage, he's obviously gets very, very quick. So yeah, as I say, everybody seems happy. He seems happy with that car as well. So yeah.
Lads, just before we finish up there, so I ask a question like this very regularly, but going into the last stage, Callum and Noel, where was the mind before we took off when we went 3-2-1? What were we thinking? Obviously, it's a different mindset in that moment to any other stage, or is it a different mindset?
For me, it's the same as any other stage. No matter what I'm doing or where I'm running or what I'm competing for, I have to do the same job. I have to do the same job, no matter what it is, or what's on stake, or what I'm competing for. I still have to do my job, so it's no real difference to me really at all.
Callum,
I think that was kind of probably helped me too at the weekend too as well. Our mindset was like obviously we were in the chasing, obviously trying to catch Alistair the whole time. So it was really, when we set out, it was we just need to keep punching in fastest stage times out throughout the weekend, and when we came into Sunday, like that's what was the plan, and that's what we did, So I was just really just resetting all the time and just going at it, And to be fair, I think that was really the mindset.
Is it a case really? I suppose it's a case really. It's a lot nicer to be the greyhound than the hare.
Yeah, exactly. I think
you're always better to be chasing, no matter what. Like,
yeah. So maybe if we were leading the rally by a comfortable margin, and maybe asked us that, maybe it might have been a different mindset. But maybe we've been thinking, just whatever you do, don't cut there, don't cut here. Where will we not cut? Stay in the middle of the road. That would be the mindset. And then you've been probably thinking everything around you, what could happen, or you've been listening to all the wee rattles in the engine and the car and stuff. Maybe that would have been some things. But as I say, all our focus was always on was just we just have to go flat out and keep pushing and keep pushing and keep putting the pressure on. And that's what we did, and that's what we kept at. So.
And what's next then? I see the Maiden City Motor Club left the entry list out there today, I think it was. So what's in the pipeline for Callum Devine?
Yeah, obviously I've been entering that before we did Clarny, so we went in for that. So yeah, we'll see if we're going to do that. Obviously Donegal's next, so I need to really see if I'm get the car ready and give it a good check over. You see, so. Yeah, we'll probably confirm that the next week or two if we're gonna what we're gonna do next. The Maiden City Rally, but yeah, it's obviously quite good rally too, and a big strong entry, which is good to see. Be nice to do it, but as I say, at the minute, maybe it might be a wee bit too tight for doing them all. As I say, you can't do them all.
It.
We could get him down here to Limerick. We can stay in the spare room here with the dog.
That's nice. That was nice. That's nice.
That's Wednesday. That's the Circuit of Munster. It's on the first weekend in June, so it'll be about 3 weeks out from us all heading to Donegal.
He's pushing you for an answer on live. He's wants to get you written down.
Exactly. It'd be nice. I think that's probably the closest of it before Donegal. So maybe in a couple of weeks' time we'll have to reset and see how we get on. And see what the plan is.
You're Jim Clark, and I take it next, yeah.
Jim Clark's next for me, with Oshin again, the second round of the British. So back across the water and another attack, see can we get the job done.
Good stuff. Well, listen, thanks a mil to both of you for coming on. Well done, and looking forward to chatting to you again soon, all right?
Thank you very much, man.
Thanks, guys.
See you guys.
Callum Devine, Nola Sullivan. So great to have a chat with lads. You could see what it meant. You could hear what it meant. And yeah, fantastic. We will be going through, as I said, the class winners a little bit later on. Coming up next, we should have Josh Moffett backstage. I think he's there somewhere. I don't see a camera turned on. Hopefully we can get that sorted in a moment. We're going to be chatting
that's my fault now, because I didn't message him in time.
Hold on. I think say nothing now. Say nothing. Josh, how we doing?
Yeah. It was my fault. I didn't send him the details in time. So.
We'll have to sack this producer, I think. How are you keeping, Josh?
Yeah, not too bad now.
Yeah, so still leading the championship. We got 21 points there. So yeah, what was your thoughts on the weekend? And I suppose in general, you've been a man in serious form. A few things hadn't gone your way up and down, but you're showing some form. And while everyone's talking about polos and Fords and everything, you're tipping along nicely in this Hyundai.
Yeah, I suppose we've had the Hyundai now for a while, and I suppose we're probably starting to get our own doubts about the car. But look, we just went rally after rally, and we're just making more and more changes to the car every time we were out in it. And I suppose we just sort of hit the ground running this year with the car, and it's obviously been working quite well for us this year. So we probably use some of the national events there to play around with the car still and try and still make some improvements to it. But yeah, look at it in general, we're very happy with the car. I think there's always improvements to be made, but I think that's probably in everything.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony, go on. I can see you lining up there.
Yeah. I was just thinking, is there still a lot of development? Is there new bits being homologated for that all the time? Or are there constantly little updates and bits and pieces? It's a car issue. We don't know.
No, not so much. Because that's now considered the old car. Obviously, any development Hyundai would be doing would be for the new R5 car, the Rally 2 car now.
Yes.
So. Yeah, look at maybe towards in the future we would maybe look at a newer car, maybe a new Hyundai. But I think what we have at the minute, it's the car in general hasn't done that much rallying yet. So we'll keep pushing away at that.
I suppose you're really being the guinea pig for others in the sense that it isn't that you can pick up the phone and ring somebody else as to what they tried in a setting or whatever the case may be. You're entirely relying on your own ability to try and set it up with Tom or whoever. And yeah, I suppose you'd wonder, would it be an advantage like all these guys that jumped on the Volkswagen bandwagon? Would it be an advantage if there was a couple of other guys out there with the same car? It's hard to know, really.
Yeah, I suppose probably everybody holds their information quite close to them, and unless you're in a big team, I suppose like Melvin Evans there that has several polos and he knows the settings in them all. If you're a one-man band or whatever going out with your polo, it'd be very hard to get that information. But look at even at that, with Tom Gahan and his team there, like the years of experience, it's very easy to develop your own thing there and work it out yourselves.
Yeah, have you've taken the Hyundai to Donegal before, have you?
No, I actually hired Philip Gase's. Yeah,
the last time. So it'll be a bit of a baptism of fire, so to get your setting right.
I have a question for you, Josh. So we interviewed Tom Gann, obviously, very recently down in Carrigan Shore, and we were talking about car prep, and he obviously will be modest enough anyway, but he said it's 90% the driver and 10% the setup. Where do you see the ratio?
Probably all aspects is very important, and it's the car setup. There's so many aspects to it, and it's your notes, it's your navigator. You need everything working to be really on your game. It's not just one single thing that's going to make it work for anybody. It's all the elements, I think, is so important.
What do you think about I suppose the whole thing of where am I going with this? I suppose just like I was baffled to learn, and it's probably well known from a lot of people from a car prep point of view that, like, obviously whoever's doing it has the car kind of the whole time. But I'm curious to know in the ins and outs of trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong, and if you're getting frustrated, trying to work out everything to try and get down, to have a look at the car, have a little spin out in it, and all this, and obviously having to trust in what the car prep guy is saying. Because often we can chop and change when we're looking for results, and maybe it's just for the sake of it because we're so desperate. Like, what do you think about that in general?
Jesus, I'm trying to figure out what you're asking myself.
So what's the basic question there now?
Yeah,
the basic question is, right. I went on a bit of a tangent there. We're chopping and changing when things aren't getting right sometimes. When the car is fine and all, and when the driver is fine, everything is fine, of course. But sometimes, has there ever been a situation, I suppose, in your career down through the years where you're looking to make a change, but maybe just say Thomas disagreed or whatever, or you think that that's what the issue is maybe, or would it be a conversation that is of interest, I suppose?
Yeah, like, I suppose, like, Tom's at this game a long time, and if I wanted to make any changes with the car or wasn't certain or overly happy with a particular way it was taking junctions or bumps or one thing or another, like, it's the conversation with Tom where we try to work out a strategy or whatever to try and make it better and move it forward. And look at, sure, it's not a big deal to try something for the next loop or whatever. It's not like we're going to change something so massively where it's not going to work all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of trying stuff, and there's quite often we might make a small change, and I'll go and do the first stage of the loop, and I'll be like, don't like that, and the first thing I do is I phone Tom, and I'm like, Tom, this is not good. How do I wind it back or whatever? So look, there's a good relationship there to make that all work.
I think in a lot of cases, when you see, I think I have an idea where Kevin was coming from. If you were one of these drivers that was constantly changing and in other words, no matter what was done for you, it wasn't right.
Yeah, pretty much. Sorry, I drove down the M50 there trying to get to the point.
Yeah. Basically, and I've seen that over the years, that no matter what you did, no matter what setting and you put in, no matter what compression, no matter how many clicks you brought it forward or backwards, the complaints were coming. And I think at that point the relationship would break down with whatever preparation man was running the car. Whereas I suppose, and Josh will relate to this. If you're inside in service and you want to try something new, move with 2 clicks. Don't move with 22 clicks, like forward or backwards, or don't change that and then change the springs and take out 50s and put in 56s. Don't change 4 things, because now you won't know what was the thing that helped. Make a little change and go out the next time and geez, that wasn't too bad. Go another little bit and say, geez, that was terrible. Go back a bit. And it's only by tiny little changes over a period of, you could be doing it for 12 months, playing and playing and playing away with it. And of course, unfortunately in Ireland, or fortunately, I suppose really from a spectator's point of view, you go to Galway, muck, gutter, it's such an unusual characteristic. And then you go to the circuit, it's a totally different characteristic. You go to Killarney, it's a totally different characteristic. So even if you had a setting that worked in Galway, there was no way in hell it was going to work in Killarney, or it will work in Donegal, or so it changes from event to event. So yeah, I think the relationship you'd have with whoever was preparing your car was really, really important.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah.
There we go. So listen, Josh, I know we're going to see you down here in Carlow, I think, in a few weeks, are we?
Yeah, that's the plan anyway.
Good man. Well, listen, I suppose looking forward to having a chat with you, because we're going to be out and about ourselves that weekend. It's Jesus, sure, you could drive a hurling ball into the Seven Oaks from here. So looking forward to having a chat with you. The very best luck, and keep her lit, all right?
Yeah, no, that's great.
You can stick him to buy a drink when you're down there. You'll be doing well to get him to do that.
I bought you a haircut this week, you stop. Thanks, Josh. Take it easy. Good luck.
Good night. God bless.
There we go. Josh Moffett, leader of the Tarma Championship and the National, of course, as well. Okay, so we're moving on to historics this time. And Tommy, come on. How are we keeping?
Good, lads, and yourselves.
Flying them now. So we were told that historics was the forgotten category. And I was like, Jesus, that's hurting out. That's hurting after having Anthony O'Sullivan on that Royal Cork and stuff. But we do our best here, seriously. In general, it's a fabulous category. I love it. I was only saying to Tommy off air, Anthony, that when I was going to rallies in maybe the late 90s first as a kid and the early 90s and stuff, I wasn't a big fan of historics or whatever. Now all of a sudden, the cars I did enjoy at that particular time have become historics, and some are still historics and different things. But we've remarked upon it already, I think, Anthony, after West Cork, with regards to the actual pace of them now. I think it was after the circuit as well. But Tommy, what's it like, obviously, to compete in?
Well, I suppose, Anthony, the funny thing about it, or Kevin, the funny thing about it for me is that I started at the opposite end of the spectrum. As a young fella, I was taken to the likes of the first historic rally in Killarney, and I had no interest in modern stuff, or at least I didn't think at the time. But now, what was modern back then is now coming into the historics. I have a great passion for older cars, so I suppose I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to sit in those type of cars. And yeah, you said they're the forgotten rally, but you look at the top end of the historics now, and some of them lads are putting in times that will put them, in the mix for modified events. So they're not slow by any means. And as well, now the caliber of the cars that are in the historics, there's no bad historic car anymore. They're all prepared, to a serious standard, and the cars are looked after professionally. Some of the top competitors at the weekend were visitors from Wales and from the UK. So I mean, it was over, I think, 26 or 27 on the entry list at the outset. So it is a very popular category, and getting more popular. I think people are starting to realise that. Anthony there was talking to the lads about different cars, like the likes of the new Skoda coming on. There are no new historic cars with the concept of homologation. So you build a historic car, you build it to the standard that it was at the time. You can't overdevelop it. So the beauty of it is that once you build your car is fit for the rally. So you're on an even keen with other competitors in the class.
Actually, Kevin, when you mentioned about the speed of historic cars, it's not that many years ago. We were in the historic lakes with a hired escort from the Percy brothers in Cloughjordan, and Rob Duggan was there in a Viking motorsport car, and Ray Breen was there. I might have them mixed up, or were they both there in Viking cars? Anyway, it don't matter. But if my memory serves me right, certainly those 3 cars were in the top 5 of the modifieds. I think actually Craig Breen's or Rob Duggan's car, might have been Rob's car, was actually winning. So they were actually quicker than the historic BDA car was actually quicker than the Gary Kiernan car. I must go back and check. And if there weren't, there was only tiny seconds between them. But I think it was the first time in record for the historic lakes. Obviously, as you know, the historic lakes is broken up into 3 different events. But it was the first time that a historic car was the fastest car. I must check, because I again, I could be wrong, but I don't think so. I think that Rob Duggan won it that year. Was it Rob or Craig? Rob Duggan won it that year, I think. And I think his car was quicker than the quickest, latest Millington all singing and dancing Mark II. So it just showed you the potential. I don't know what it showed you, actually. It showed you that no matter all the years of development, and the old car was still quicker, because obviously, as Tommy says, as regards there was actually homologation back in the 70s, and it has to run to what it was back in 1972 or 3. And an interesting conversation.
I think the beauty of that, Anthony, the beauty of that is that, again, you build a car to that specification. So there isn't a guy going to rock up next week like in the modifieds with the newest gearbox or the newest suspension setup. So it makes it leverage somewhat.
It was a ZF box in 72 and it's a ZX box in 2022. It makes no odds.
Yeah.
And they're like, hence teach what I hear.
You've lads now starting to say, is it fair to have the likes of the 4-wheel drive starting to come into? But it's like you said with stages, it's progression. Time is coming around. Yeah. And you see on Sunday there the likes of Bertie Fishers and Pretza sitting in service there, as a guest of the weekend, and it's only a matter of time before those cars start coming into it.
If rumours to be believed, that they divulged a little bit from service on a bit of a jaunt too, but to go back into what you were saying about the historics, I know you and I have spoken about this, and I was interested in your view on it, but I'm more interested now to tell everybody your view on it. And this was about when you start in the historic rally. Obviously, it runs as a separate event on the first day.
Yes.
Go with that story a minute, because I was intrigued by that. And this was literally, if you look at the West Cork scenario, where unfortunately you do the first 6 stages. I actually don't know what format you did in Killarney. So I presume you went to the briefing the same as normal. Did you go to the briefing?
Yeah, we did briefing. So we did effectively, we're there the same length of time as every other competitor that's doing the national or the international. We attended drivers' briefing on Friday evening at the same time. But the format that seems to have taken place with a lot of the internationals at the moment is that we don't compete on the first loop of stages on the Saturday. Now, conversations held over the weekend with some of the competitors, they're saying for the extra couple of €100, they'd be happy and content to do the entirety of the rally. One of the biggest problems is it's the same costs to competitors to be down on Friday night, to be there all day Saturday and all day Sunday. In West Cork, we spent a considerable length of time waiting around to get out in the first loop of stages. Now, in West Cork, it was an 8:30 start with drivers' briefing. I think it was something like 3 o'clock in the afternoon before we actually saw a stage. In West Cork as well, on the Saturday, we were a standalone event with our own double O's, but on the Sunday, we were put into the main field. So effectively, we were split up amongst the national rally itself. And, we'd modified escorts coming behind us. Slightly different in Killarney with the format, with drivers' briefing on Friday night. Yes, we didn't get out in the first loop of stages on Saturday afternoon, but when we did get into rallying with our own double O's and our own standalone event, we stayed together collectively both Saturday and Sunday. And I suppose from a competitor's point of view in the historics, that suits us far better. There are, like, I spoke with somebody today and he said, it's not cutthroat competition in historics. There's massive camaraderie in it. You have very much like-minded individuals with, the same outset, albeit some are quicker than others. You've BDAs and you've Pintos, but in the categories of the historics, we've our own little battles, and we race amongst lads that are of a similar speed and a similar interest. When you dilute that, putting us into the main field, we'll say, for want of a better, give you a prime example. Sunday morning in Ring, in West Cork, we had Hazel O'Callaghan starting behind us with a modified escort. We are limited to a 4-speed box, albeit it is a 2-litre car and everything else. The setup is different, suspensions are different and everything else. And I won't say it makes you uncomfortable, but you can concentrate when your driver is looking maybe in the mirror, thinking, is he going to be holding him up? Are we going to get caught? Whereas when you go into a like-minded rally and a class with other historic cars, you know the guy behind you. If he's going to be a little bit quicker than you, you might do a reshuffle, or you'll say, okay, he's going to take 10 or 15 seconds off us, but he's not going to catch us and we're not going to hold him up. Plus, when you're together as a rally, I suppose, you can get out at time controls or to start the stages and you can have the chat with the fella. And I don't think yet in historic rallying, I've had a competitor ask me, or I in turn asked him, what time did you do on that stage? It's not like, yes, obviously we're all looking online and seeing where we are in classes and how we're doing against each other. But the overall thing is that we're actually there to enjoy our rallying and enjoy the cars and display the cars that we have effectively.
And that was the bit when we spoke during the week about this, and that's why I was mad to have you on. That when you said that you don't compare times, and I went, wow, and I think, and you're right in what you say. And it's no blame to any guys in West Cork. I think people I don't think people realise that it's. I don't think organisers in general just realise that, as you said, there is no cutthroat element. They're purely there for the love of the vehicle and the love of the sport. Everyone gets so focused on the competition and the intensity, and as you said, the class 14 and everything, and that's fine. But even until you told me, I went, wow, if you take a step back, what you're saying was absolutely right. Now, I don't know how you get it to work going forward. How do you get? Sorry for moving, because I'm just uncomfortable where I'm sitting. That's why the camera. It's not that I'm drunk or anything. How do you work that then? So how do you work it not to incorporate the historic on day 2? So day 1 is fine. But how do you work it not to?
Yeah, but I think even in respect to day 1, I suppose clubs probably need to look at it again and say, we're there. It's the same cost to be there for the entirety of the weekend. Maybe turn it around. Maybe start a full day on Saturday. And some competitors might be happy if we're going to have to do only a half day. Do it on the Sunday. Give lads an opportunity maybe to get settled up to go home. But realistically, I think leaving us alone at the weekend in Killarney as a standalone event with our own double O's. I think it's to the benefit of the sport, really. I mean, I think it would entice more. Obviously, there was over 20 historic cars in Killarney at the weekend, and similar, a strong entry in West Cork. But where it fell down a lot of the times when the national events, you might only see 2, 3 or 4 historic cars because effectively they're being mixed into the main field. And there's this kind of general consensus that maybe we're a bit slower. But you look at some of the times from the historic cars, and as you said, the likes of Rob or Craig and these guys when they're driving, or Alan or Fergus at the weekend, they're as quick as a lot of the cars. But I think they have to look at it and realise that we're not an add-on. We're as good as any other competitors in the event, and we should be recognised for that.
I suppose it's it may add 5 minutes onto your rally. So in other words, what you're saying is when the last main field runner goes through the stage, and we'll just use Killarney for the example. So on day 2 in Moll's Gap, when the last main field runner would leave the start line in Moll's Gap, there would be maybe 1 double O going after that, and within obviously wait for 3 minutes to give the double O, and that left whose car won, Alan Ring, I think it was, and leave Alan in behind that. So I suppose I'd love to. I must talk to 1 or 2 organisers. I'm just curious to know, is there any negative to that? Because it sounds such a simple thing to do. Obviously, they'll lose out to 3 minutes, but
and the flip side of it, I suppose, they're doing it for the juniors. Albeit they're only doing the 1 day. So and there's there was 20 historic cars finished in Killarney. There was only 10 junior cars that finished. So from a financial point of view, you'd nearly be saying that clubs would be wanting to encourage more historic cars, and it proves every November or December when the historics run in Killarney, there are plenty of historic cars in the country.
But of course, it's growing and growing and growing. Certainly, I've done the historic lakes several times, and it is some crack. You actually, and as you alluded to there, you actually realize why you compete. You enjoy it. It is far more enjoyable, certainly when we do anytime we've done the historics. Yes, we were trying to compete for a position or an overall position and so on, but it's not as intense. And maybe it's just your mindset thinking it's not as intense, but you certainly seem to enjoy it more.
Yeah, look, I mean, there are battles within the classes as well, and we always like to get one up on the lads, and get a couple of seconds off from here and there. But like this particular weekend was probably one of the most enjoyable events that I've done, and it wasn't particularly to do with actually being on the stages, because like Declan Casey there that sat with Todd Falvey the weekend had the foresight to create a WhatsApp group and include a lot of the historic competitors, and it was like going for a weekend away with your buddies. The crack and the banter and everything that goes with it. And it leads on to the next event. I mean, already today the group is renamed. It's for Donegal next, and trying to get lads that may not necessarily have gone to Donegal to think about going another weekend away and having the crack and the banter with each other.
I'm just here smiling to myself, thinking that I couldn't picture my country cousin there, Callum, say, and the likes of Alistair and all these boys in a WhatsApp group now, having a chat during the day about how things are going. It's a different. It's for all the world like a different sport.
Yeah.
You're like a school child there, Kevin. You raised your hand
because we have a comment. We have a comment in which is noteworthy from Greg McCarthy, who has said that West Cork used to, I think he means used to, in the past, run historics as a separate event. They're only seeded into the main field in the last 2 years pre-COVID at the request of some of the historic competitors in the past. All right, so that's a comment.
That was interesting, because I was saying I'd love to talk to someone. It would be Greg, actually. I would have been binding his ears. So, I
just had to put that in there. Sorry, I put the hand up. But it's just interesting when you're talking about it,
Yeah, and the thing to be careful about here is that, West Cork is a fantastic event, and it's not a reflection on them, I suppose. It's just to try and get a grasp on, and Killarney did things at the weekend where we didn't do the full day on Saturday as well. And I don't know what the intentions are for Donegal, which way to run it, but I suppose as competitors in the historics, we just feel it's better to be together, whatever way they want to run it. But I suppose the difficulty as well from an organisational point of view is that you look at the top end, some of the top end historic cars as well. They are ultimately quick. And some of us would fall into other categories and classes in that regard within the national. But from a kind of an overall point of view, I think being kept together is a better way of running it, really.
The risk of losing stages is another comment that's come in there from Kevin O'Riordan. That's something to consider as a possible complaint that has come in before, that if you do have the delay, obviously, to get in the double O sweeper and then run off the historics, that you may be over the time allowed, obviously, for the road to stay closed, and you have to just, that sort of way, or if there's a blockage, then you're in trouble as well, Yeah.
And my answer to road closing is just get it longer, get it road closed out to 6 o'clock, even though you may not use it. That's an easy one to remedy. But it was just interesting, as I said, we spoke during the week about it, and it was interesting when I heard it, and I said, I need this fella on to say that, just to put, it's literally to put the opinion and put the thought out there. I suppose
absolutely.
It's not saying it's right, wrong, good, bad, or indifferent, but it was just a very interesting viewpoint, I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think going forward, the historics is going to get bigger and bigger. There's more cars coming in, and fellas are starting to realise it. It's the way to go.
I suppose to be very remiss of this podcast, considering we're never afraid to discuss issues here, as you know, and being live, that Callum didn't realise we were live. I suppose we have to congratulate you on being an internet sensation, an overnight internet sensation after 35 years or whatever age you are. I think that was a very good reflection on your professional day-to-day job. I thought that was handled excellently. But of course, you're used to that. It probably meant nothing to you, but to all us mere mortals watching it, we went, that looks good. It's nice to paint the job in a good light, because sometimes they're not often that job doesn't often get the credibility or the credit it deserves. But we can't discuss the ins and outs of it.
Well, look, we can give general context. So a situation occurred where a spectator wanted to go down a live stage, essentially, and there was a bit of kind of an over and back about that. And Tommy, you basically came on, and the one thing that stood out for me straight away was, I'm here, I'm trying to help you. That's something that when you always say it, no matter who you are or what your job is, when you say that, there is a good chance you are going to be able to reason with someone. And I have to commend you on that. I thought that was a standout thing for me.
Yeah, I suppose it happened so quick, and as Anthony alluded to, we deal obviously in my profession, we deal with a lot of conflict on a daily basis, and I suppose you become immune to it somewhat. But I say what really saved me in that incident was when we arrived. There was marshals everywhere, yellow flags, and I actually thought there had been an accident. Because we had been delayed on the start line prior to that. Poor Duncan Williams had broken down as he went into the stage, and I thought we had come on an accident, but the radio marshal was very quick to inform me what was going on, so I was able to summarise what was going on. And obviously there was heated emotions, and I mean it's blatantly obvious there's footage out there of it, and we live in a society now where we have to be very, very conscious of that everything is recorded, and I'm not one to generally highlight what I do for a living. Obviously people do know that I'm a guard or whatever else, but you had marshals, you had spectators, you had the individual that was there that were having their conflab and the conflict that was there, and I just saw an opportunity to take the gentleman away and try and explain to him that we could help him, but he had to work with us for it to help. And I have to commend the marshals that were there, in particular the girl that was there, because they are volunteers. They don't go out and I don't know what they do for a living, or they mightn't be used to dealing with conflict and everything else, but it went back again to the basics and the simple thing of we activated trackers. We got a radio marshal to notify control of what was going on, and 7 or 8 cars maybe lost out on the stage as a result of it, but ultimately I was far happier pulling away from that situation, knowing that nobody had gotten hurt or that we hadn't been involved ourselves, because we were the next car on it, that we didn't have to take avoidance action and have an accident. But fortunately, because it was resolved quite quickly, the double O's were able to get back in and get the junior rally up and running again. So, but again, thankfully, the video wasn't overly popular on Sunday evening. It was more yesterday, we'll say Monday, before it came out. So I didn't have to do too many interviews. But I've had a lot of texts and phone calls from competitors and spectators and people since the event. And, it's nice to get it acknowledged. But it was what you just did at the time when it happened, basically, and made sure that things were solved and sorted.
Well done. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
Fair play to you.
Thank you.
And look, in general, the very best.
Now.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't mind Anthony. It's not my first viral video, unfortunately, and I'm surprised that there hasn't been any commentary or messages put up to PG. I doubted myself one time. It was one of my second rally ever. We had an incident where we ended up on the roof, and I was a bit vocal. I hadn't had an accident in a rally before. I wasn't overly familiar with rallying, I suppose, from a competitive point of view, and that was a viral sensation as well for a while. So that's 2 for 2. So I'm dreading what the third video is going to be.
I think poor PG actually retired. I think he was doing quite well in the class, and he retired very, very late. He retired on the last stage, I think, in the Sunday.
Last stage, yeah. And I tell you, it was the first text that I sent from once we got through the final control, to send him a text that I was gutted for him, because
I'm trying to see the photograph, and I didn't understand. Was it a drive popped out? It was a dry shaft that popped out, or a dry shaft part?
Yeah. I mean, he had a good weekend, as he said himself. The point was proven. He was going quite well before that happened. So,
he's a good
and
guy.
Just to touch on another thing that you said there, you were Blackguard and Callum at the start of the podcast about emotions, and that I suppose one of the benefits of running at the back of the field at the weekend in the historics is when I got into Park Firmer after the event was over, is that I got to witness Noel and Noel's dad meeting in the car park, and obviously all the publicity the week prior to the event with Noel Senior and all the years he's done it. It was nice just to see the two of them embracing and realizing, that it is a family event, and it was nice to see in the occasion. And there was plenty of celebrations afterwards. I was telling Kevin off here before we started, I went out to the prize giving on Sunday night, and I partied like I thought I was still in the junior rallying. But when I walked on Monday, I can certainly tell you I won't be at that crack anymore.
Well, do you know what? That's a lovely place to leave it. Tommy, I really enjoyed having you on. Thanks for coming on with us, and we'll chat to you again soon, all right? And well done again. Cheers.
See you, Tommy.
Yeah, that was great. That's really good. That's a prompt and great discussion. We need to move on to...
I told you he was a good guy.
Yeah. We need to move on to our next guest, Mr. Dennis Nagle. How are you, sir?
Thanks, Kevin. Anthony, how are you?
Hi, Dennis. How's it going? Apologies, I don't know this chap at all, but the name is good, so we should be... Is there a relation tie-up?
There is a bit, all right, yeah.
What's the extent of it there, just to give it to people that don't know?
My dad and Paul's dad would have been first cousins.
Right.
The man that invented historic rallying, so Tommy could go out and play, basically.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
So Maurice Nagle, the famous Maurice Nagle, Lord of Mercy, Maurice was your uncle.
Second cousin, I think, is it?
Oh, sorry, yeah, I got it
My
mixed up. I'm
father's
useless with
Yeah,
relations.
family trees. I'm often like that as well, especially when the father. Yeah. You know what I'm getting at. But Dennis, in fairness, as we said at the outset of the program, we do go down through the class winners of every event, but we never actually interviewed one separate to, the classes that are kind of, I don't know, how would you put it, like kind of at the forefront. You were impressive in winning Class 9 alongside a good Carolman, a lad I know well, Mr. Brian Rowan. So talk us through your weekend.
Yeah, it was great. I'd be familiar with a lot of the Saturday stages there, kind of around the area where I was brought up and where I live. So when Brian came down and we did a recce, we kind of had a plan in place that we'd kind of go out and have a bit of a push on Saturday and see how we were fixed in. If we had a trouble-free day, we'd try and just get through Sunday then without any bother. But we had a good run on the second stage, and we kind of built up a good lead in, so we just tried to manage that. We got a puncher all right on the second to last stage Saturday. So we had to drive for about probably just under half with the puncher. But we managed it well enough anyway. We still did overnight and just got through Sunday then.
I think to get to the end of any international rally is such an achievement. I'd say no matter where you finished, it's an achievement in some cases to get to the bloody end of it, because it's the stages back there are so demanding. Like, you go in and you come down the back end of Balakbima there, and one junior chap actually had a bit of misfortune there. But it's so tricky and so demanding, and as you relate to, the pace note calling is intense going down to the likes of those places. And there's a great buzz. Mind you, actually, you may know this. I heard that, and I don't know whether it's true or not. Is there proposed improvements to the Malls Gap Road? I hear that's in a big plan for Kerry going forward. I know rally fellas will hate the idea of it, but
yeah, I'm not too sure. I know there's a lot of resurfacing done there now, just up to Fisher's Bridge and things, but I'm not too sure how further on they're going taking that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, I suppose. Yeah, it'll be a rallyman's worst nightmare. I know it'll be a tourist delight, but I think as we discussed it earlier, we're seeing some of the classic stages slightly eroded, even though the name is still there and it's still fantastic to go up it. I think from a rallyman's perspective, he doesn't want it 30 foot wide, really.
Yeah, definitely. The gap definitely has changed a lot, even since I started rallying. But geez, there's nothing like we up the gap and going to Kinmare. It's something else.
It's brilliant, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's better run as up there. It's still class to get over it.
Would you rather go left or right at the top?
Left, I think. Yeah, I've never actually rallied right, so I would even
most people, I think, rather left. I don't know. I personally would be left as well. I don't get the same. I don't think the car slides as much when you go right, going around at the top. I think you don't get as much a reaction. You'll hear a big roar from the crowd when it goes left, but you don't seem to get the same reaction when you turn right.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of work when you go left down to the end as well. Like, especially if tires and whatnot are on the way out after the work up along.
Yeah, the car. You find that actually. Yeah, the cars intend to roll around a small bit. Whatever the good has probably gone out of them by then. But yeah, of course, it's such an abrasive road, as you said, with all the resurfacing. But even in the older days, it was still very abrasive up there. And even though it made no sense to go up on a hard tire early in the day, you could do it really up on Malls Gap. But it's a unique, and there's no other rally really like that you could nearly start the rally at 7 o'clock in the morning with hard tires.
Yeah, exactly. And all the gap is class, and even Balakbima, I love Balakbima myself, especially. We'll say the second half of the stage, it's nice. So it suits my little car anyway. Definitely the tight twisty stuff.
I know, nice event.
Dennis, just before I let you go, unfortunately there's a clipping or something with the microphone. I don't know what's going on there, but I have to ask you what's next on your agenda.
Nothing for a while. I'm due to get married later this year, and I was trying.
Jez, good man.
So I'd say the rallying will be put on hold for a while now.
Jez, that's two of you. Is that right, Kevin? When are you going?
I took the plunge there last year, so yeah.
There's two of you. Well, I'll tell you, lads.
Maybe I set a bad trend, Dennis. Did I don't know.
Well, I'll tell you, lads. I'm married since 2008. Tis a great day, and tis just the finest.
Yeah, well, listen, enjoy it, Dennis. That's all I can say. Take it all in and enjoy it. It is a great day, as Anthony said. So yeah, a couple of months' time, is it?
Yeah, the August bank holiday weekend. Yeah,
that's the job. And we're invited to the afters, are we?
I should land on there, no bother.
That's the job. Listen, Dennis, thanks a million for coming on, and
Yeah,
we'll
thanks.
chat to you soon. The best luck with the wedding, all right?
Yeah, thanks.
Good night.
Come on. There we go. So, Anthony, we have to go down through our class winners. So, Dennis Nagle and Brian Rowan winning class 9 there. So, let's go down through the whole lot while we're at it. Class 7, that went to Michael O'Brien. The RC2, or R5 as some people like to call it, or whatever. So, Callum Devine and Noel O'Sullivan, Josh Moffett, Andy Hayes, Johnny Greer, Niall Burns. That's your top 3 overall. The RC4, Jason Dixon and Darren Curran. Moving down to that famous class 24, class 25. You've Jason McSweeney and Liam Brennan winning that. Class 10 went to Alan Costello and Paddy Costello. 11F went to Darren Young and Sean Walsh. Second there, Shane Dillon and Sean Hickey. And third, Niall O'Connell, Tommy O'Connor. 11R went to Mark Murphy and Thomas Murphy. Second, Bob Moore and Owen Collins. And then Mike Nelligan and John Hurley. Class 12 going to Sean Moynihan and Aileen Kelly. Second there, Cyril Wharton and Donald Falvey, Raymond O'Neill and Pádraig Donovan. Third, class 13 honours going to Raymond Conlon and Damien Fleming, Colin Moynihan and Kevin Horgan. Second, Sean Moore and Jonathan Keane. Third, Rob Duggan. What a performance. In fairness, we haven't spoken about it yet. He was absolutely incredible. We did tip that last week. He was true to form, in fairness. Winning alongside Ger Conway with 48 seconds to spare in the modified over Kevin Eves and Chris Melly, and they were absolutely spectacular as well. It just goes to show how good Rob was, and he's on home turf. Conor Murphy third there with Sean Collins. Class 15 going to Andy Heekin and Sarah McFadden. Class 20 John Hickey and Morris McElligott in that Fubru. Class 22 going to Cyril Casey and Mick Lonergan. Good man Mick, know him quite well. Killian Cronin, a good friend of the podcast as well. Check out Rally DNA podcast too if you're at loose end. He was alongside Derek Flynn. They were second, Pa O'Mahony and Sean O'Mahony third. Gavin Shield fourth in that class with Ken Blanche. 2 other book was I know quite well. Moving down to the historics then. So Alan Ring and Adrian Deasy taking that. I did try get in touch with Alan, couldn't get him on here this evening. Luke McCarthy and Brian Duggan second, Ivan Warwick and Claire Rogers third. Pat Looney in the class C3, Pat Looney and Amy Burke, Philip McKibben and Mr. Tommy Coman, who was on a short while ago, second. Donald O'Connor, John Nugent third. The C5, Morris Meskill and Stephen Meskill second. Peter Walsh, Grace Walsh and Craig McWilliam, and Guy McWilliam third. D2, Brian Crawford and Finian Hannigan. D3, Rob Falvey and John Doody. And D5, that one going to Fergus Amara and Ronald Reardon. Neil Williams, Anthony O'Sullivan second. Marion Evans and Dale Furness third. E2, Irla Carty, Jack Carty. And then the juniors, Jason Farrell. I did try to get Jason on as well and did after West Cork. Just not his thing. It's not for everyone. He took that by 2 minutes and 20 seconds with John McCarty. Second, Robbie O'Hanlon alongside Liam Egan and Gary Healy and Gerard Moynihan third. Now, in fairness, just to put it out there, I did approach someone from the club to come on as well. Ivan Hurley was caught and couldn't come on, hence why I'm giving the class winners. But there you go. That was a mouthful, I have to say. And well done to everyone.
Well done for you for coming out with all that. I don't think I'd have been able to do that. Just one point of interest on a class 24. The famous right-hand drive R5, as I'd said, that'll be the last time those results will be given on air.
Do you reckon?
My understanding is that it's likely that in Donegal, and I'll wait till I get official approval somewhere, but I think that debate is sorted, and I think class 24 will retire itself, and those R5s will be incorporated into the main field. Interesting
indeed. Comments wise, just to read out a few of them. Fergus O'Mara says Tommy is a great ambassador for the sport. Indeed he is. East Coast Rally and say, good evening lads. I have to say the pace of the historics at this year's Rally of the Lakes was unreal. Great to watch on Carroll Lake. I think running them at the back of the field in their own event is great. Let's see, can we get through a few more? And there was a good few come in since we got going. Derek Cummins is watching in. Gerard Mullen says well done Callum, Noel and CDR team, great result. That's just a flavour of them. We can't get to them all, as the fella said. We say 45 minutes to an hour the whole time. It's now an hour and 5. Our predictions, Anthony, right? Our predictions. So Rob Duggan was my shout for modified, and I was going with Ali Fisher, who was desperately close to making that a very good prediction, and just losing out obviously on the last stage. Who did you go with again? I can't remember.
You can be sure I was wrong anyway, so let's need to go with that.
But it's all to play for now. Again, in fairness, it's all to play for.
Yeah, it's because all the events are so different. Now, luckily enough, I'll be in Donegal, so I'm looking forward to going. Stuart and I will go to Donegal. So I'm looking forward to it. I enjoy Donegal now, so we'll head up there. And it is, to be fair, all the other events are big, but this is the big one in that it's a 3-day event. It's the only 3-day event in the calendar, and there's usually a good buzz around. But it'll be nice. And of course, remember at the sharper end of the field now, it's likely that you'll have Gary Jennings in the mix as well, with most likely Rory Kennedy. So it'll be interesting to see how all that pans out.
We will indeed. So that's where we have to leave it for this one. We're out, I think, every week for the last 3 or 4 weeks. We're out again next Tuesday because the Carlow Stages Rally is coming up, and they have commissioned an episode as well. We have some great guests lined up for that, so we'll be hoping to chat to Tommy Randall. So we could have chatted to tonight as well, I suppose, but he speaks very affectionately about the Mark II Challenge with the Carlow Stages Rally. We won't name drop the rest of them. We've a good few to line up for next Tuesday, and we will be out and about on the Carlow Stages Rally as well at a few stages, similar enough to what we did in Carrick and Shore in terms of just catching the live stage and doing a little bit of commentary. So looking forward to doing that. Anthony Nestor, a pleasure as always. Thanks for joining us here this evening, all right?
Good night and God bless.
And thanks to you, the listeners and viewers, for getting in touch. And thanks to treerock.ie, our sponsors here this evening. Display, signage, branding. Tree Rock, visit them on Twitter, Facebook and on Instagram. Give us a follow on Twitter, Facebook and on Instagram as well. Don't be afraid of it. Our following is after growing massively, and it's fantastic. So we really appreciate that. We appreciate the comments. If you want to get in touch with us, irishrallypodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, absolutely loving it. It's been great over the last few weeks, and looking forward to doing it again over the next couple of weeks. But until next time, until next Tuesday, I should say, mind yourselves and take care.